My name is Brent, 38 years old, and for 12 years I believed I had a loyal wife. 12 years of building a life together, a house, vacations, plans for children we never had. All of it a carefully constructed lie. It started with a dress. One scandalously short black dress, 2 hours of makeup, and a party I wasn't invited to. That was the night my neighbor Maris, poised, elegant, utterly ruthless, handed me a USB drive that changed everything. What did I find? Hotel receipts spanning 6 months. Emails where my wife called me clueless, a fiancé in Providence who had no idea her man was funding his affair on my dime. In 72 hours, careers ended, criminal charges were filed, and a marriage dissolved. And my wife? She was still perfecting her makeup, completely unaware the walls were already closing in. Before I tell you what happened when they saw me, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. Nothing says I'm not cheating like dressing for the Oscars to attend a party your husband isn't invited to. I watched Lana adjust her scandalously short black dress in our bedroom mirror, the fabric barely covering what used to be mine alone. She'd spent 2 hours on her makeup, another hour on her hair, and precisely 0 minutes explaining why I wasn't welcome at her boss's invitation and gathering. "You sure you don't want me there?" I asked from the doorway, keeping my voice light. After 12 years of marriage, I'd learned to hide my suspicions behind casual conversation. She turned, flashing that practiced smile she used on clients. "Brent, honey, it's just work, people. You'd be bored out of your mind. Right? Because nothing screams boring work event like a dress that costs more than our mortgage payment." I could suffer through it, I offered, watching her spray perfume on her wrists. The expensive kind she only wore for special occasions or special people. "Really, it's fine." Maris specifically said it was just the core team. She grabbed her purse, checking her phone for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. "I'll probably be home by 11 o'clock. Maris Venter, the boss's wife. Interesting that she was suddenly making guest lists for her husband's company parties. I followed Lana downstairs. My security consultant instincts picking up every tell. The nervous energy. The way she avoided eye contact. The phone clutched like a lifeline. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. She smelled like guilt and expensive cosmetics. The moment her BMW disappeared down our tree-lined street, I headed to my home office. 12 years in military intelligence, followed by 8 years running corporate security, had taught me that the truth usually lived in the digital details. Lana's laptop sat on our shared desk, password protected, but not from me. I'd set up all our home security systems, including the network. She thought her browser history was private. It took me exactly 4 minutes to find what I was looking for. Her work calendar showed tonight's event. Team building Venta residence 7 o'clock p.m. The guest list made for fascinating reading. 23 names from the company plus their spouses. All except one, Eric Voss. No +1 listed, just Eric. I'd met Eric exactly twice. Both times he'd managed to work Lana's name into conversation within the first minute. The second time at last year's Christmas party, I'd caught him staring at my wife like she was the last slice of pizza at a college party. My phone buzzed. Text from Greta CR, our 66-year-old neighbor who knew everyone's business better than the FBI. Saw Lana leave looking like a movie star. Hot date. I typed back, work party. You know how these corporate things are. MHM. Well, if you get lonely, I made too much casserole again. Greta's casserole was legendary, but her gossip network was even better. 3 years ago, when the Hendersons' marriage imploded, she'd known about the affair 2 weeks before Henderson himself figured it out. I opened Lana's email next. Most of it was standard work correspondence, but buried in her projects folder, I found a thread that made my jaw clench. Subject tonight from Erikvis Venter Digital. Con to Lana Merovinigital.com. Can't wait to see you in that dress you mentioned. Brent still doesn't suspect anything, right? Her response, he's clueless, too busy with his security systems to notice what's happening right under his nose. My hands stopped moving on the keyboard. 12 years of marriage, 12 years of building a life together, buying this house, planning vacations, talking about kids we never quite got around to having. Clueless. I scrolled through more messages. 3 months of increasingly intimate exchanges, hotel receipts forwarded to personal emails, conference calls that happened to coincide with my business trips. The last message was from this afternoon. Maris made sure Brent wasn't invited. We'll have the whole evening. Maris Venter. Now, that was interesting. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'd worked with Maris 6 months ago when someone had been stealing packages from their neighborhood. High-end security system installation, plus some discreet investigation that caught the thief and earned me a very generous bonus. More importantly, it had earned me Maris's respect and private phone number. Maris Venter was everything Lana pretended to be. Genuinely sophisticated, wickedly intelligent, and absolutely ruthless when crossed. She'd mentioned during our project that she wasn't particularly fond of Lana's ambitious nature. I pulled up her contact information and dialed. Brent, what a lovely surprise. Her voice carried that slight accent that came from expensive boarding schools. How are you, darling? I'm well, Maris. I hope I'm not interrupting your party preparations. A pause. Oh, you mean tonight's little gathering. How did you another pause. Longer this time. I see. And how much do you see exactly? Enough to know that my wife thinks I'm clueless. Maris laughed. A sound like expensive champagne bubbles. Oh, my dear man. Lana really has no idea who she married, does she? Apparently not. Well, this is delicious. I assume you're calling for a reason beyond sharing your marital revelations. I took a breath. I was wondering if you might have room for one more guest tonight as your plus one. The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. When Maris spoke again, her voice carried pure delight. Brent Marrow, you magnificent bastard. I thought you'd never ask. An hour later, I stood in front of our bedroom mirror, adjusting my best suit, the charcoal gray one that Lana always said made my shoulders look broader. The one she'd bought me for our anniversary last year, back when she still cared about how I looked. My phone buzzed with a text from Maris. Car arrives at 8:15. This is going to be so much fun. I checked my appearance one final time. At 38, I'd kept myself in decent shape. Military habits died hard. My hair was still thick, my jaw still sharp, and my eyes still held that intensity that had once made Lana weak in the knees. Tonight, she was going to remember exactly who she'd married and exactly what she'd thrown away. The black sedan pulled into our driveway at precisely 8:15. I locked the house, pocketed my keys, and walked toward whatever came next. Time to crash a party. The Venter mansion sat on 3 acres of perfectly manicured lawn, all glowing windows and architectural ambition. Cars filled the circular driveway. BMWs, Mercedes, a few Teslas for the environmentally conscious executives. Through the large front windows, I could see the party in full swing. Maris emerged from the sedan like royalty stepping from a carriage. She wore emerald green silk that probably cost more than most people's cars, and her silver hair was swept into an elegant updo that screamed old money sophistication. You look absolutely devastating, she said, linking her arm through mine. I do hope Lana appreciates fine tailoring. She used to her loss, darling. Shall we make an entrance? The front door opened before we could knock. Caleb Venter stood there looking every inch the successful tech executive in his perfectly fitted navy suit. His face registered surprise when he saw me. Brant, I didn't realize you were coming tonight. Last-minute addition, Maris said smoothly, squeezing my arm. I simply couldn't bear the thought of attending without my favorite security expert. Caleb's confusion was almost comical. But I thought, didn't we discuss the guest list? We did, darling, and I'm discussing it again. Now, shall we join the party or are we going to conduct business on the doorstep? We walked into the main living area, and I had to admit, the Ventors knew how to throw a party. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers, and the lighting was perfectly calibrated to make everyone look their best. It took exactly 12 seconds for someone to notice me. Priya Singh, Lana's social media manager, nearly choked on her champagne. She grabbed her phone immediately, no doubt texting the news to everyone she knew. In the age of Instagram, nothing stayed secret for long. I scanned the room methodically, cataloging faces and reactions. Jesse Martinez from HR looked confused. Tom Bradley from accounting raised his eyebrows. And there, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pool, stood my wife. Lana had gone completely still, like a deer caught in headlights. Beside her, Eric Voss looked like he was about to vomit into his martini glass. "Oh, this is even better than I hoped," Maris whispered. "Look at their faces." She guided me through the crowd, stopping to chat with various guests, making sure everyone noticed her escort. Maris Venter introducing someone was like a royal endorsement. People paid attention. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Brent Merrow," she announced to a small group near the bar. "He's the security consultant who solved our neighborhood mystery last year. Absolutely brilliant work." "Morrow," said Janet Chen from marketing. "Why does that name sound familiar?" "Oh, that's because he's married to Lana," Maris said with perfect innocence. "You all know Lana, don't you? She's right over there by the windows." The group turned to look and I watched the realization dawn on their faces. Lana was still frozen in place, Eric hovering beside her like a guilty conscience. "Small world," I said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. I had no idea so many of Lana's colleagues would be here tonight. "Yes," Maris continued. "When I realized dear Lana's husband was available, I simply had to invite him. After all, spouses should support each other's careers, don't you think?" The group murmured agreement, but their eyes kept darting between me and Lana. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Excuse me," I said politely. "I should probably go say hello to my wife." I crossed the room with deliberate slowness, enjoying every second of Lana's growing panic. Eric looked ready to bolt for the nearest exit. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, leaning in to kiss Lana's cheek. She was rigid as a statue. "You look beautiful tonight, Brent." Her voice came out as a croak. "What are you doing here?" "Maris invited me." Wasn't that thoughtful of her? I turned to Eric, extending my hand. "Eric, right? We met at the Christmas party." Eric's handshake was weak and sweaty. "Yeah. Hi. Good to see you again." "Likewise. I hope you don't mind me crashing your work event." "Oh, it's not I mean, everyone's welcome, right?" "That's generous of you." I sipped my champagne, watching them both squirm. "So, what's the occasion?" Lana mentioned it was some kind of team-building exercise. "Something like that." Lana managed, finally finding her voice. "Really, Brent, you don't need to stay. I know these corporate things bore you. Actually, I'm finding this fascinating. It's not often I get to see where my wife spends her time." I gestured around the room. "Beautiful house, isn't it? Maris has exquisite taste." Priya appeared at my elbow, phone in hand. "Brent, I'm doing a little social media coverage of tonight. Mind if I get a picture of you and Lana?" Before either of us could object, she snapped several photos. "Perfect. You two look so cute together." I'll tag you both. Lana's face had gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. In the age of social media, every moment was documented, every interaction broadcast to the world. I need another drink, Eric mumbled, practically fleeing toward the bar. Coward, I thought, but kept my expression pleasant. Brent, can I speak with you privately? Lana's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Of course, darling, though, I'm having such a lovely time meeting your colleagues. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in through my jacket. Now, we moved to a quieter corner near the staircase, away from the main party. Lana's composure cracked the moment we were alone. What the hell do you think you're doing? She hissed. Attending a party, socializing, supporting my wife's career. Isn't that what good husbands do? You weren't invited. But I was invited by Maris. Lovely woman, by the way. Very perceptive. Lana's eyes narrowed. What did you tell her? Nothing she didn't already know. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. The question is, what haven't you told me? For a moment, genuine fear flickered across her face. Then her expression hardened into the mask I'd been seeing more and more lately. I don't know what you think you know, but you're embarrassing yourself. And me? Am I? Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who looks embarrassed. Brent, I'm warning you. Warning me. I straightened up, my voice still calm, but with an edge that made her step back. That's interesting. What exactly are you warning me about, Lana? Before she could answer, Maris appeared beside us, carrying a small USB drive. Brent, darling, could you give this to Caleb? It's those security files he requested. She smiled sweetly at Lana. Hello, dear. Having a good time. I took the USB drive, recognizing it immediately. It was one of mine, the kind I used for client presentations, but I hadn't given Maris any security files. Of course, I said, where is Caleb? By the big screen, I believe he was just setting up some presentation equipment. Lana's face went white. What kind of security files? Oh, just some footage from the office building, Maris said casually. You know how these corporate security systems record everything. Hallways, conference rooms, after-hours access. Very thorough. I watched my wife's world begin to crumble in real time. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Excuse me, I said politely. I should deliver this to Caleb. I walked away, leaving Lana frozen in place, and headed toward the entertainment center, where Caleb was indeed setting up a laptop connected to a large wall-mounted screen. Mary asked me to give you this, I said, handing him the USB drive. Ah, perfect timing. I was just about to show everyone the photos from last quarter's team building retreat. He plugged in the drive and clicked through the files. This doesn't look like photos. On the screen, a video file opened. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago, 9:47 p.m. The location was clearly the Venter digital conference room captured by a security camera with night vision capability. The footage showed 2 figures entering the room, clearly visible despite the late hour, Lana and Eric, and they definitely weren't there for a business meeting. The room fell silent as people turned to look at the screen. Someone gasped. Priya's phone was recording everything. Caleb's face went through several shades of red as he realized what he was watching. His finger hovered over the laptop trackpad, frozen between stopping the video and letting it play. Well, Maris said, appearing at his shoulder. That's certainly not the team-building footage we expected. The aftermath of Caleb's impromptu screening was everything I could have hoped for and more. Within minutes, the party had divided into 2 distinct groups. Those pretending they hadn't seen anything, and those who couldn't stop staring at Lana and Eric. Caleb had shut off the video after about 30 seconds, but 30 seconds was more than enough. In the digital age, 30 seconds might as well be a lifetime. I think we should call it a night, Lana announced to no one in particular, her voice barely steady. She'd managed to locate Eric, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the expensive hardwood flooring. So soon? Maris asked with perfect innocence. But the evening is just getting started. I watched my wife gather her purse and wrap, moving with the mechanical precision of someone in shock. Eric had already vanished, presumably to his car and whatever remained of his dignity. "Thank you for a lovely evening," I told Maris, kissing her cheek in the European fashion. "Most educational. The pleasure was entirely mine, darling. We simply must do this again soon." The ride home was conducted in complete silence. Lana stared out the passenger window while I drove, both of us processing the evening's events in our own ways. She was probably calculating damage control. I was planning phase 2. We pulled into our driveway at 10:43 p.m. Lana was out of the car and heading for the front door before I'd even turned off the engine. "We need to talk," she said the moment we were inside. "Do we?" She spun around, her carefully styled hair finally showing signs of the evening's stress. "That was a setup. You and Maris planned this whole thing. Did we?" "Don't play games with me, Brent. I know what you did." I hung up my jacket with deliberate care, taking my time. "What exactly did I do, Lana?" "Attend a party, meet your colleagues, support your career. You humiliated me in front of everyone." "I humiliated you." I turned to face her, letting some of my anger show for the first time. I wasn't the one in that conference room video. Her mask slipped completely, then revealing the calculating woman underneath. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. And you decided to handle it like this? Publicly destroying me instead of talking to me like an adult?" The sheer audacity of it left me momentarily speechless. She was actually trying to make this my fault. "You're right," I said finally. "I should have talked to you the way you talked to me before you started having an affair. The way you talked to me before you told Eric I was too clueless to notice. The way you talked to me before you decided our marriage was something you could just throw away." She flinched at each point but recovered quickly. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I've seen the emails, Lana, the hotel receipts, the conference calls that coincidentally happened when I was out of town. You went through my private communications. Your private communications were conducted on our shared network using devices I pay for in a house I own. Nothing about your affair was actually private." That stopped her cold. I could see her mentally reviewing every digital interaction, every electronic trail she'd left. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want my wife back, but she's been gone for months, hasn't she? What I have instead is a stranger who wears her face and spends my money while planning to leave me for a junior account executive. Eric isn't. Eric is about to be unemployed. Caleb doesn't strike me as the forgiving type when it comes to employees who use company resources for personal entertainment." As if summoned by my words, Lana's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and her face went even paler. "Let me guess," I said. "Caleb wants to see you first thing Monday morning." She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, you're going to start looking for somewhere else to live, and you're going to pray that Caleb doesn't decide to press charges for misuse of company property. You can't just throw me out. I have rights. You have the rights of someone who committed adultery in a state that still recognizes fault-based divorce, which is to say, not many." I headed for the stairs, then paused. "Oh, and Lana, you might want to call your friend Jessie. I have a feeling you're going to need someone to talk to tomorrow." I left her standing in our living room, surrounded by 12 years of shared memories and the wreckage of everything she'd destroyed. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Lana's voice drifting up from the kitchen. She was on the phone speaking in the low, urgent tones of someone trying to manage a crisis. I showered, dressed, and made my way downstairs. Lana was at the kitchen table, laptop open, phone pressed to her ear. She looked like she'd slept about as well as I had, which was to say, not at all. I don't care what the policy says. She was telling whoever was on the other end. This is clearly a setup and I want it investigated. I poured myself coffee and settled at the counter to listen. No, I will not accept a suspension. This is my career we're talking about. What do you mean pending review? Pending review of what? She noticed me watching and turned away, lowering her voice. But our kitchen wasn't that big, and I'd learned to listen carefully during my military years. Jesse, you have to help me talk to Caleb. Explain that this was taken out of context. What do you mean you can't get involved? We've been friends for 6 years. I sipped my coffee and checked my own phone. 3 missed calls from Mick Sullivan, my old army buddy, who now ran a private investigation firm in Boston. I'd called him yesterday morning before the party with a simple request. Background check on Eric Voss, plus any dirt he could dig up on Lana's recent activities. Mick's text was brief but promising. Call me. Found some interesting stuff about your boy Eric and your wife's been busier than you thought. Lana ended her call and turned to glare at me. Satisfied? Not even close. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, I called Mick back. He picked up on the first ring. Brent, how'd the party go last night? Better than expected. What did you find? Well, your wife's boyfriend is quite the piece of work. Did you know he's engaged? I nearly choked on my coffee. Come again. Eric Voss. Engaged to one Amanda Foster of Providence, Rhode Island. Weddings planned for next spring. Apparently, he's been playing both sides of this game. I looked at Lana, who was trying to pretend she wasn't listening to every word. What else? Your wife's been busy, too. Hotel charges going back 6 months, not 3. Always the same pattern. Conference calls scheduled during your business trips. Hotel rooms booked under her corporate account. She's been systematic about it. Send me everything already in your email. Oh, and Brent, there's more. Eric's got gambling debts. Serious ones. The kind that make a man do stupid things for money. I thanked Mick and hung up. Lana was staring at me with undisguised fear. What gambling debts? I asked, her mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak. I don't know what you're talking about. Eric's gambling debts. The ones that probably motivated him to seduce the wife of a successful security consultant. The ones that made you look like a solution to his financial problems rather than a romantic partner. The color drained from her face completely. That's not he wouldn't. Wouldn't he? When's the last time Eric paid for one of your hotel rooms or dinner or anything really? I could see her mentally reviewing their relationship, probably realizing for the first time that she'd been funding her own affair. There's something else you should know, I continued. Eric's engaged, weddings planned for next spring. If I'd slapped her, the reaction couldn't have been more dramatic. She actually staggered backward, grabbing the kitchen counter for support. You're lying. I pulled up Mick's email on my phone and showed her the engagement announcement from the Providence Journal. Eric and Amanda, looking blissfully happy, announcing their upcoming nuptials. Lana read it twice, then sank into a kitchen chair like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. He said he loved me, she whispered. I'm sure he did. Right up until he got what he wanted. My phone rang. Greta Krantz. Morning, Brent. Quite the excitement last night, I hear. Morning, Greta. What excitement? Oh, just the usual neighborhood gossip. Seems someone's been having visitors during the day while you're at work. Ring doorbell cameras see everything these days. I glanced at Lana, who had gone rigid again. Do they? Indeed, they do. Shame how people think they're invisible just because they park around the corner. Technology is amazing, isn't it? It certainly is. I don't suppose you happen to record any of this amazing technology at work? Well, now that you mention it, I might have saved a few interesting clips, for neighborhood security purposes. Greta Cranes, bless her gossipy heart, had just handed me another nail for Lana's coffin. I'll stop by later if that's convenient. Anytime, dear. I'll put the kettle on. Lana was looking at me with something approaching horror. What did she mean about visitors? I think you know exactly what she meant. Brent, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. Start over. Start over. I stood up, suddenly too angry to sit still. You want to start over after 6 months of systematic betrayal? After you told your lover I was too clueless to notice, after you've been using our home, our bed, our life as your personal playground? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now you want to work it out because your boyfriend turned out to be using you the same way you've been using me. I headed for the door then turned back. Pack your things, Lana. I want you out by tomorrow. You can't do this. This is my home, too. Actually, it's not. The deed is in my name only. A security precaution I took when we bought the house, given my line of work. Turns out it was more prescient than I realized. I left her sitting in the kitchen surrounded by the ruins of her carefully constructed lies and headed out to begin phase 3 of my plan. Because if Lana thought last night was humiliating, she had no idea what was coming next. The Copper Kettle was the kind of upscale bar where Lana's crowd went to see and be seen. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs, craft cocktails with names like the Hemingway and Smoke and Mirrors. It was also where Eric Voss had been drowning his sorrows since getting fired on Monday morning. I'd been tracking his movements for 3 days, learning his new routine. Coffee at 9 a.m. at the Starbucks on Main Street, lunch at various restaurants, always alone, always paying cash. And every evening at 6 p.m. sharp, he'd plant himself at the Copper Kettle's bar and work his way through their top-shelf whiskey selection. Tonight, I decided to join him. Eric was on his 3rd drink when I slid onto the bar stool beside him. He looked like hell, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, the kind of hollow-eyed exhaustion that comes from watching your life implode in real time. Brent, his voice was flat, resigned. I wondered when you'd show up, Eric. I signaled the bartender. Bourbon neat. Make it a double. We sat in silence for a few minutes. 2 men who'd been on opposite sides of the same disaster. The bar was filling up with the afterwork crowd, young professionals decompressing from their corporate lives. For what it's worth, Eric said finally. I never meant for it to happen like this. Like what? Getting caught or getting fired or finding out your fiancé saw the video on social media. He winced. Amanda broke up with me Tuesday morning. Saw Priya's Instagram story from the party. Tough break. You don't sound very sympathetic. I turned to look at him directly. Should I be? You were having an affair with my wife while planning to marry someone else. Exactly which part of that deserves my sympathy? Eric drained his glass and signaled for another. Lana said you didn't care about her anymore, that you were basically roommates. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. At least he was honest about that much. I sipped my bourbon and watched him struggle with whatever remained of his conscience. She's been calling me, he said non-stop since Monday. Wants to meet, talk about our future together. What future? You're unemployed. She's suspended. And you're both about to be the subject of very expensive divorce proceedings. She thinks we can start over somewhere else. New city, new jobs, new life. I almost laughed. With what money? Your gambling debts or her frozen bank accounts? Eric's head snapped up. How do you know about? I know everything, Eric. The debts, the engagement, the fact that you've been using my wife to pay your bills for 6 months. The only question is whether you're going to keep lying to yourself about what this was. He stared into his drink like it might contain answers. I did care about her. Sure you did. Right up until it became inconvenient. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You needed money. She needed attention. And I was the convenient target. The only problem was that I wasn't as clueless as you both thought. Eric finished his drink and stood up unsteadily. I should go probably. But Eric, I waited until he looked at me. If you contact my wife again, if you so much as text her, I'll make sure Amanda gets copies of every email, every hotel receipt, every pathetic love note you sent. I'll make sure your parents get them, too. And your future employers. His face went white. You can't do that. I can do whatever I want. You opened this door when you decided to target my family. Eric stumbled out of the bar, leaving me alone with my bourbon and the satisfaction of watching another domino fall. My phone buzzed with a text from Maris. Darling, are you free for dinner tomorrow? I have news. I texted back. Of course. What kind of news? The delicious kind. Caleb's decided to press charges. I smiled into my drink. Phase 4 was about to begin. The next evening, Maris and I sat in the private dining room of Romano's, the kind of restaurant where politicians and business leaders conducted their most sensitive conversations. The walls were thick, the staff was discreet, and the wine list was exceptional. Caleb's been conducting his own investigation, Maris explained over her second glass of Bordeaux. Turns out your wife and Eric were quite creative with their expense accounts. How creative? 6 months of hotel bills, restaurant charges, even a weekend trip to Boston, all charged to company accounts as client development. That's embezzlement. Indeed, it is. Caleb's accountants estimate about $15,000 in fraudulent charges, enough for felony prosecution. I let that sink in. Lana hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been stealing from her employer to fund the affair. There's more, Maris continued. Jesse Martinez has been covering for them, falsifying timesheets, creating fake meeting notes, even booking the hotel rooms under her own credentials. Jesse's involved up to her eyeballs. Caleb's firing her tomorrow morning. I thought about Lana's phone calls, her desperate attempts to get Jesse's help. No wonder her friend had been avoiding her. What about Priya? Clean, surprisingly. She just documented everything on social media without realizing what she was recording. Her Instagram stories have become key evidence. The irony was perfect. Priya's obsession with social media had created a digital trail that would destroy the very people she'd been trying to celebrate. When will charges be filed? Next week. Caleb wanted to be thorough. Maris leaned forward, conspirator ally. He's also planning to sue for damages, recovery of stolen funds, plus punitive damages for breach of fiduciary duty. Civil and criminal charges, the full treatment. Your wife picked the wrong company to steal from. We finished dinner and walked to the parking garage together. Maris's driver was waiting with the town car, but she dismissed him with a wave. I'll drive myself tonight. Thomas, take the evening off. She turned to me as her driver disappeared into the elevator. There's something else you should know. What's that? Lana came to see me yesterday, tried to convince me that you'd blackmailed me into helping you. Did she? She offered me $50,000 to recant my story about the security footage. I stared at her. $50,000? Where would she get that kind of money? Apparently, she's been skimming from your joint accounts for months, moving money to a private account you didn't know about. The hits just kept coming. My wife hadn't just been cheating and stealing from her employer. She'd been robbing me, too. I assume you turned down her offer. Of course, though, I was tempted to take her money just to see the look on her face when she realized it wouldn't help. Maris smiled wickedly. I do so enjoy watching people dig their own graves. What did you tell her? That she'd made a serious error in judgment about you? About me? And about how this was all going to end? We reached our cars and Maris paused with her hand on her door handle. Brent, darling, I hope you know how much I've enjoyed our little collaboration. It's not over yet. No. What's next? I thought about the final phase of my plan. The piece de resistance that would complete Lana's destruction. The spring gala is next weekend. Morris's eyes lit up with understanding. Of course, the social event of the season. Everyone who matters will be there, including several people who've been very curious about recent events. And you think Lana will attend? I think Lana will try to rehabilitate her image. She'll want to be seen, to control the narrative, to convince people that she's the victim in all this. How delightfully naive of her. She's always believed that charm and manipulation could get her out of any situation. It's worked for her before, but not this time. I smiled, feeling the familiar satisfaction of a plan coming together. This time she's going to learn the difference between being smart and being clever. Maris clapped her hands together like a delighted child. Oh, this is going to be magnificent. What do you need from me? Just be yourself and maybe save me a dance. Darling, I'll save you several. I drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood, past houses full of families living their normal lives, unaware of the drama playing out just down the street. In a few days, it would all be over. Lana would be facing criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and social exile. Eric would be a cautionary tale about the dangers of mixing business with pleasure. And I would be free to rebuild my life without the weight of their betrayal. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Lana's car was gone, which meant she was probably staying with whatever friends she had left. The guest room had been cleaned out 2 days ago along with most of her clothes and personal items. Inside, I poured myself a drink and sat in my home office reviewing the files Mick had sent me. Photos, financial records, witness statements, digital evidence, enough to destroy a dozen marriages and several careers. My phone rang. Lana, we need to talk, she said without preamble. Do we? I know what you're planning for the gala. Do you? Don't play games, Brent. I know you and Maris are planning something. Are we? I'm warning you. If you try to humiliate me publicly again, I'll fight back. How? With the $50,000 you tried to bribe Maris with the money you stole from our joint accounts? Silence. Or maybe you'll use the evidence of your embezzlement, the hotel receipts, the falsified expense reports. More silence. Here's what's going to happen, Lana. You're going to face the consequences of your choices. All of them. And I'm going to watch. You bastard. No, I'm the husband you betrayed, lied to, and stole from. There's a difference. I hung up and turned off my phone. In 3 days at the spring gala, this would all be finished, and Lana would finally understand exactly who she'd been married to. The spring gala was held annually at the Riverside Country Club, a sprawling estate that had been hosting the town's elite for over a century. Tonight, 300 of the area's most influential people would gather for dinner, dancing, and the kind of networking that built empires and destroyed reputations. I arrived fashionably late after the cocktail hour had begun, but before the formal program started. The valet took my keys with the practiced efficiency of someone accustomed to expensive cars and generous tips. Inside the ballroom was a study in elegant excess. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in pristine white linens. Each centerpiece a small masterpiece of seasonal flowers. The crowd was exactly what I'd expected. Local business leaders, politicians, old money families, and the social climbers who orbited around them. Maris found me within minutes, resplendent in midnight blue silk that made her look like royalty. She was accompanied by Caleb, who greeted me with the enthusiasm of someone who'd recently discovered I was more useful than he'd realized. Brent, glad you could make it. Maris tells me you've been invaluable during this whole mess with the company. Just doing my job. Well, your job might have saved us from a much bigger scandal. I shudder to think what else we might have found if you hadn't brought this to our attention. I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter and surveyed the room. No sign of Lana yet, but the evening was young. Has she RSVP'd? I asked Maris quietly. Oh, yes. Confirmed this morning. In fact, she'll be here alone. Apparently, Eric wasn't invited, and I doubt he could afford a ticket even if he was. The gala tickets were $500 each, a price point that effectively limited attendance to people who could afford to be seen spending that kind of money on a single evening's entertainment. Dinner was served at 8, a carefully choreographed affair that showcased the country club's reputation for excellence. I was seated at Maris and Caleb's table along with several other couples from their social circle. The conversation was light, sophisticated, the kind of small talk that revealed more than it concealed. Lana made her entrance during the salad course. She wore red, a bold choice that demanded attention. The dress was new, expensive, and perfectly fitted. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup flawless. She looked every inch the successful executive, confident and composed. But I could see the cracks in her armor, the slight tension around her eyes, the way she held herself too rigidly, the forced brightness of her smile as she worked the room. She was seated 3 tables away, close enough to be visible, but far enough to avoid direct confrontation. Her tablemates included several people I didn't recognize, plus Janet Chen from her former marketing department. She looks nervous, Maris observed quietly. She should be. The formal program began after dinner. Awards were presented, speeches were made, and checks were written for various charitable causes. It was all very civilized, very proper, very much the kind of event where reputations were made and maintained. During the presentation for the scholarship fund, Maris excused herself from the table. She returned just as the lights dimmed for the next speaker. "It's done," she whispered. I nodded, feeling the familiar calm that preceded action. Everything was in place. The guest speaker was a motivational expert who specialized in business ethics. His topic, integrity in leadership, building trust in the modern workplace. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. Halfway through his presentation, the large screens flanking the stage flickered. The speaker paused, looking confused as his PowerPoint slides were replaced by something else entirely. Financial records appeared on screen. Hotel receipts, expense reports, bank statements, all clearly labeled with Lana's name and employee ID number. The audience stirred uneasily as they realized what they were seeing. 6 months of systematic embezzlement laid out in meticulous detail. Then came the emails, professional correspondence that gradually became personal, then intimate, then explicit. The progression of an affair conducted on company time with company resources. I watched Lana's face as her private communications were displayed for 300 people to read. She'd gone completely white, frozen in her chair like a deer in headlights. The final slide was a video compilation, security footage from the office building showing Lana and Eric entering and leaving at unusual hours. Hotel surveillance from their various trysts. Even footage from Greta's Ring doorbell showing Eric visiting our house during my business trips. The room was completely silent except for the soft whirr of the projection equipment. Then someone started whispering. Then someone else. Within seconds, the ballroom was buzzing with shocked conversation. Lana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. "Ladies and gentlemen," came a voice from the sound system. Maris had somehow gotten hold of a microphone. I apologize for the interruption, but I felt it was important to share some information about recent events at Vent Digital. She was standing near the stage, elegant and composed. Every inch the society matron delivering unpleasant but necessary news. As many of you know, we recently discovered serious misconduct within our company. Embezzlement, fraud, and abuse of corporate resources. The evidence you've just seen represents months of investigation by our security team. All eyes turned to Lana, who was still standing frozen beside her table. Someone was taking pictures with their phone. Someone else was recording video. "We believe in transparency and accountability," Maris continued. Which is why we felt it was important to share this information with our community. After all, integrity is the foundation of trust, isn't it? She was quoting the evening speaker, adding insult to injury with perfect timing. Lana finally found her voice. "This is a setup," she called out, her composure cracking completely. "This is harassment." "Is it harassment to present evidence of criminal behavior?" Maris asked calmly. "Or is it simply accountability? You don't understand the whole story. Then please enlighten us." But Lana had no answer for that. How could she explain away 6 months of documented theft and adultery? How could she justify using company money to fund her affair while lying to everyone involved? She grabbed her purse and headed for the exit, moving as quickly as her heels would allow. But the damage was done. 300 people had seen the evidence, heard her response, and drawn their own conclusions. I followed her outside, catching up as she waited for the valet to bring her car. "Satisfied?" she asked without turning around. "Getting there. You've destroyed everything. My career, my reputation, my future." "No, Lana, you destroyed those things. I just made sure people knew about it." She turned to face me, tears running down her cheeks and ruining her perfect makeup. "I loved you once. I know. And I loved you. But love isn't enough when it's built on lies." The valet arrived with her car, a BMW she could no longer afford. She got in without another word, and drove away into the night. I stood in the circular driveway of the country club, watching her tail lights disappear, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Inside, the gala had resumed. The speaker had recovered from the interruption and was finishing his presentation on business ethics. People were already moving to the bar, eager to discuss what they'd witnessed. Maris appeared at my elbow, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can finally breathe again." "Good. Because there's one more thing." She handed me an envelope. Expensive paper with my name written in elegant script. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a check. A very large check made out to me personally. "Caleb wanted to show his appreciation for your work on the investigation, plus compensation for your personal losses." The amount was enough to pay off my mortgage and fund a very comfortable fresh start. "This is too much nonsense. You've saved us from a much larger scandal, and you've done it with class and precision." I folded the check and put it in my jacket pocket. "Thank you. Thank you, darling. This has been the most entertaining few weeks I've had in years." We walked back inside together, ready to rejoin a party that would be talking about tonight's events for years to come. Lana was finished in this town. Her career was over, her reputation destroyed, her social circle collapsed. She would face criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and the kind of public humiliation that followed people forever in the age of social media. And I would rebuild my life older and wiser, but finally free from the weight of her betrayal.